Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons, and I kind of want to give an update, a field report on 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons. So, I am switching to 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons, and what is 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons? Well, it's Scott Garibay's form of Dungeons & Dragons, which comes from the Dungeon Master Guide, page 4, which is the rules aren't in charge, you are in charge. And so, one of the things that's truly incredible about Dungeons & Dragons is it encourages you, it says, hey, no two Dungeon Masters Dungeons & Dragons should be the same. You need to be changing the rules of this game, right? And so, in your campaign and in your sessions, you should have different rules than someone else. And it's saying, hey, and so I think for Dungeons & Dragons, this is kind of where I've landed. You can change, you can't change none of Dungeons & Dragons. I don't think you're really playing Dungeons & Dragons if you play every single thing written in the PHB and written in the DMG. Gary Gygax from the gate is like, this is, every Dungeon Master really needs to put their own, thumbprint on their campaigns and their sessions. It really needs to be unique. So you cannot change nothing. Or in my humble opinion, you are not playing Dungeons & Dragons. If you've never changed a rule in Dungeons & Dragons, you don't know what it means to be a Dungeon Master. That's just my 2 cents, right? You cannot change everything, because at that point, you really should be playing a different tabletop role-playing experience. You should be having a different tabletop role-playing experience than Dungeons & Dragons. And last, you should change some, right? And you could change 99% or you could change 1%, right? But if you're a Dungeon Master, you change the rules. And so 1 hour D&D is Dungeons & Dragons, and it's my Dungeons & Dragons. It's sliced the way I want to present to the world, and specifically 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons is sliced to accomplish the goals I have for Dungeons & Dragons and for myself, right? And for my players, right? So, okay. So let me explain, so one, I really feel very strong about doing 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons because I've been doing 2 hour Dungeons & Dragons for probably 5 years solid. And the reason why I'm moving to 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons is I actually think nothing in the world does more to destroy and harm Dungeons & Dragons than the 4 hour game, right? Because what 4 hour Dungeons & Dragons does, 4 hours per session, is it has one purpose and one purpose only: to make people who played in the 80s comfortable, period. That's it. That's end of sentence. It's the only thing it accomplishes, which is the worst possible goal, in my opinion, that any Dungeon Master could have today, because it's so destructive. And I think we're doing exactly, we're doing right now, in my humble opinion, we're doing exactly with 4 hour Dungeons & Dragons what we've done with our planet Earth. We're like, hey, why don't we just burn the Earth and then the young people can deal with it, right? And it's the same thing. 4 hour Dungeons & Dragons does more to chase away any possible new players than anything else in Dungeons & Dragons. Nothing they're putting in the books is as destructive as 4 hour. It is my humble opinion, 4 hour Dungeons & Dragons, there's nothing more destructive to the future of Dungeons & Dragons than 4 hour Dungeons & Dragons, right? And so I've dedicated myself to being able to be able to take 4 players, 4 players, and take them through an entire adventure that is joyful, gives answers, is worth everything that they've invested, is worth everything that they've invested in order to play and enjoy Dungeons & Dragons. And I just really feel it's important to Dungeons & Dragons. It's just so important, in my humble opinion, to make sure that Dungeons & Dragons is a winsome experience. And guess what? I don't care how good a Dungeon Master you are, you cannot give someone a winsome experience in 4 hours today in 2022 for Dungeons & Dragons. And the reason why is, in 2022, no one does anything. No one does anything. Okay? For 4 hours. Like, it's just like that's supposed to be winsome, right? And joyful, right? It's the shape of our world right now. And I do think there are a lot of incredibly destructive Dungeon Masters, like, I played in the 80s, and the most important thing in the world is that I remain comfortable, and I'm never stressed or strained in any way from my nostalgia journey. Right? And that's the only purpose that 4 hour Dungeons & Dragons retains anymore. I am convinced that the future of Dungeons & Dragons is cinematically paced Dungeons & Dragons. And guess what? 4-hour Dungeons and Dragons is not cinematically paced, right? And get this, 2-hour Dungeons and Dragons. If you're playing 2-hour Dungeons and Dragons, God bless you. Go with God, right? But if you're playing, 4-hour Dungeons and Dragons, you are, in my humble opinion, as Dungeon Master, you are one of the most destructive forces in the D&D community right now. It is a huge problem, and I'm dedicating myself to fixing it. I'm fixing 4-hour Dungeons and Dragons. I'm pushing back against it and saying, listen, I know you had some sad sack Dungeon Master keep you captive at their table for 4 hours, but the reality is none of that is needed. You can tell a winsome, joyful, you can have a winsome, joyful experience with Dungeons & Dragons in an hour and go through an entire adventure. And I have seen it a lot in the comments. People are like, you can't run a Dungeons & Dragons campaign in an hour. You can't run a Dungeons & Dragons adventure in an hour. This debate is over. I have witnesses. It was run twice at PhilCon 2022. I filled every single table, and I got very good feedback, from those people, and was invited back at PhilCon, and them saying, hey, we'd love to see this next year, because there were a lot of people who wanted in who literally couldn't fit on your table, right? And then I ran this 3 times at PAX Unplugged, and I filled every single table. There was one that I didn't fill. There's a story behind that, but actually, the signups were there. People couldn't find the room, so whatever, but it got a good response at PAX Unplugged, and there's another video that it will even tell you exactly what happened. That's linked below, right? So it's not just me saying this, right? Hexpress is kind of my voucher now, right? Which is great, and I appreciate that. And then in addition to that, I'm running a weekly 1-hour Dungeons & Dragons Last Laser Sights and Last Rites, which is players take on the role of it's a one-on-one game, one DM, one player, and then additional players can play in their own campaigns that are run concurrently, and actually players can meet, right? But I'm running 1-hour D&D, which is I run that on Wednesday nights now. My D&D game is on Wednesday nights now, and I run it every single week, and we're coming up to session 4, right? So 1-hour D&D is very real. It's rolling, and I get people in the comments who are like, you can't run D&D in an hour, and here's the answer. You can't run D&D in an hour. I can, right? And the reason why is I've been training for it for 5 years, right? And the reality is, I will say this right now, there's a lot that goes into running 1-hour D&D. It's not easy, right? I'm doing it based off of 5 years of training and an absolute, very incredibly specific drive to reduce the time on Dungeons & Dragons. So I'm very excited about 1-hour Dungeons & Dragons. It's very real. It's up and running. I ran it at PAX Unplugged 2022. I ran it at PhilCon 2022, and I'm running it weekly right now, right? So I can, here's my field report. 1-hour Dungeons & Dragons is very real, and I'm telling you right now, I'm coming for you 4-hour Dungeons & Dragons. I want 4-hour Dungeons & Dragons to die. It serves no purpose but to validate the nostalgia journeys of 1980s dungeon masters who really don't want to embrace reality or modernity. And so I really do want 4-hour Dungeons & Dragons to die. I don't want to see it at any tables going forward. And I'm going to do my part to make sure that 4-hour Dungeons & Dragons goes away, right? Now, the way we do that is we show that 1-hour Dungeons & Dragons is better, right? And so just wanted to give you an update. That's where I'm at currently. Thanks for giving me a chance to share that with you. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.